She only wanted peace. A quiet cabin. A life far from the wolves who cast her out. But when a wounded stranger knocked on her door, eyes like blood and secrets older than time, her world changed forever. He was the alpha vampire. The most feared creature alive. And she, the light he could never touch. But when darkness came for them both, the fire she'd buried deep inside finally rose. This isn't just a love story, it's the story of a war between destiny and choice, and the woman who stood between them. Before we continue, please tell us where you're watching from and sit tight and enjoy this captivating tale. Chapter 1: The Storm and the Stranger. The storm came out of nowhere. One moment the woods were still, the air heavy with the quiet that only deep forests hold. The next, thunder cracked so close it shook the little cabin where Ilara lived alone. Rain hammered against the windows, wind tearing through the trees as if something angry had woken up in the sky. She sat by the fire, her blanket wrapped around her shoulders, watching the flames fight against the draft. The sound of rain had always comforted her. It meant no one was coming. No curious travelers. No angry faces from her past. Only her fire, and the sound of the world washing itself clean. But tonight felt different. The wind howled like a living thing, and in it, she thought she heard a whisper. Maybe it was her imagination, she'd been alone too long. She reached for her tea, her hand shaking slightly. Then it came. A knock. 3 heavy, deliberate strikes against the door. Ilara froze. The cup slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. No one ever came here. No one even knew where she lived. Her pulse thundered in her ears. For a few seconds, she didn't breathe. Maybe it was the storm. Maybe a tree branch. She waited. Another knock. Harder this time. Urgent. She stood slowly, her knees trembling. The firelight threw nervous shadows across the cabin walls. She grabbed the iron poker from beside the hearth and edged toward the door. "Who's there?" she called out. Her voice didn't sound like hers, too thin, too uncertain. For a moment, silence. Then, a voice. Deep, rough, and strangely calm. "I mean you no harm. Please. I need shelter." The tone was powerful but strained, like someone trying to hold himself together. Not begging, commanding, but barely standing. Ilara's instincts screamed at her to ignore it. To stay silent. To let whoever it was move on and disappear into the rain. But something inside her, something she didn't recognize, moved. She unlatched the door. The storm burst inside, cold and fierce, carrying the smell of rain and blood. A man stood in the doorway. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his black cloak soaked through and plastered to him. His skin was pale, almost glowing in the flash of lightning, and his eyes, she saw it even in the dim firelight, glowed faintly crimson. He looked like something carved out of the night itself. Ilara's breath caught. "You're hurt," she said before she could stop herself. The man's voice was low. "I didn't mean to bring danger to your door." He swayed slightly. The hand braced on the frame was trembling. "Who are you?" she demanded, though her voice shook. "My name is Kale Draven," he said, each word slow, deliberate. "Alpha of the Nightborn clan." The word alpha hit her like a blow. Vampire. That was what he was. Everything in her screamed run. But he didn't lunge at her, didn't bare fangs. He simply stood there, bleeding into the storm. Ilara swallowed hard. "You should go before." He staggered. His knees almost buckled. Instinct overruled fear. She stepped forward and caught his arm. It felt like ice, solid as marble. He blinked, dazed, as if her touch shocked him. "You shouldn't have opened the door," he murmured. "But you did." And with that, the alpha vampire collapsed against her. She dragged him, barely, into the cabin, kicking the door shut behind her. Rainwater spread across the wooden floor. Kale landed heavily against the old chair by the fire, his cloak slipping away to reveal a torn shirt and blood so dark it looked black. Ilara stared, horrified. Long, jagged gashes cut across his chest. The wounds were trying to close, muscles twitching as if healing and tearing all at once. She knelt beside him, breath shaking. "What did this to you?" He forced his eyes open. "Hunters," he rasped. "Crimson Order. They don't stop." Ilara fetched a basin of water and clean cloths. Her mind spun, but her hands moved on their own. If you're a vampire, she said, wringing out a cloth, why should I help you? Because, he whispered, I'm dying. And because you won't let me. Her hand froze midair. He couldn't possibly know that. He hadn't even looked at her when he said it. You don't know me, she said quietly. I do, Cale murmured, eyes half closed. Not your face. Your name. Ilara's breath stopped. What? Ilara Vale. He said it softly, like a secret he wasn't supposed to know. You live outside both worlds. Human and wolf. Forgotten by both. Hunted by neither. She stared at him, unable to move. The fire cracked between them, throwing gold over his blooded chest. How do you? Because your name has power, he said. And I've heard it whispered in dreams. Her stomach twisted. You're delirious, she muttered, pressing the cloth to his wounds. He hissed in pain, his hand snapping up to grip her wrist. His touch was strong, too strong, and for a moment, fear surged up her throat. But his crimson eyes weren't cruel, they were desperate. If you want to help, she said through clenched teeth, you'll need to let me. Something flickered in his gaze, respect, maybe. Slowly, his grip loosened. She cleaned and wrapped the gashes, refusing to meet his eyes again. When she finished, he leaned back against the chair, breathing heavy but steadier. You should rest, she said. Just don't bite me. Cale gave a faint, tired smirk. You'd taste like lightning. She glared. Try it, and you'll choke on iron. A sound left him, a laugh, soft but real. Noted. For the first time in years, the cabin wasn't silent. And somehow, that terrified her more than the storm. Chapter 2, The Wounded Alpha. The storm faded to a dull rumble by morning. Mist clung to the trees outside, and weak sunlight filtered through the cracks in the shutters. The air inside the cabin was warmer now, though Ilara barely felt it. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, the vampire's face, pale in the firelight, his body too still. Cale Draven. Alpha of the Nightborn. She sat across from him, clutching a mug of cold tea. He hadn't moved for hours. For a while, she thought he was dead. Then his chest rose slowly, and his eyes opened. They were no longer bright crimson, but softer, more human somehow. Still, they held a power that made her breath hitch. You stayed, he said, his voice rough from disuse. Against my better judgment, she replied. Cale's mouth curved slightly. You're brave. I'm cautious, she corrected. There's a difference. He glanced at the bandages on his chest. You did well. She looked away. I used to patch up wounded wolves. I know what infection looks like. You're not part of a pack anymore. Her head snapped toward him. You really do know everything, don't you? Not everything, Cale said. Only what matters. Ilara rolled her eyes, but her pulse quickened. She wanted to ask how much he truly knew, but the question lodged in her throat. Instead, she asked, why here? Of all places in this forest. He straightened slowly, grimacing. Because your home is hidden. No sigils. No trails of magic. No scent that leads hunters in. She frowned. You mean invisible? To them, yes. His gaze caught hers. You live outside both worlds, Ilara. That makes you untouchable. And valuable. Her heart tightened. Valuable to you? To many, he said simply. But I chose to come here. She crossed her arms. You didn't choose. You stumbled in half dead. His eyes glimmered faintly. And yet, somehow, I ended up exactly where I needed to be. Her breath caught at the weight of his tone. It wasn't flattery, it sounded like belief. Dangerous belief. Don't, she warned. Don't say things like that. Cale tilted his head. Why not? Because you don't know me. And I don't believe in fate. He smiled faintly. That's the thing about fate. It doesn't need your belief to work. Before she could reply, a sound outside made them both tense. A distant crunch, footsteps in wet leaves. Cale's expression hardened instantly. The tiredness vanished. The predator returned. Stay behind me, he said, standing. His wounds glowed faintly under the bandages, already healing faster than humanly possible. "Behind you? This is my home," she whispered. His crimson eyes flicked toward the window. "Not anymore." The knock came again, 3 sharp raps, too firm, too confident. "Not a traveler. Not a friend." "Ilara," a voice called from outside. A male voice, cold and commanding. "We know he's inside." Her stomach dropped. "Who?" "The Crimson Order," Cale said under his breath. "Hunters." He moved toward the door, every step soundless despite his size. "Whatever happens," he said quietly, "do not let them touch you." Before she could respond, the door splintered inward. 3 men stood framed against the pale morning. Their armor was scorched and scarred, marked with the symbol of a burning flame. Their eyes were sharp, cruelly calm. The one in front smiled. "So it's true. The Alpha hides behind a mortal woman." Ilara's pulse pounded. Cale's voice was a growl, deep and dangerous. "Leave now." The hunter drew his sword, its edge gleaming silver. "Or what? You'll bleed again for her." Something inside Ilara snapped. Fear turned to anger. She stepped forward before she could think. "You're not welcome here," she said, her voice shaking but fierce. "Get off my land." The hunter's gaze flicked to her. "Ah. So the rumors were true." His grin widened. "The forgotten girl." Ilara froze. The name felt like a wound reopened. Forgotten. Abandoned. Unwanted. Cale's body went rigid. "You've said enough," he warned. The air shifted, thick, electric. Even the hunters seemed to feel it. One raised his weapon higher. The first strike came like lightning. Cale moved faster than her eyes could follow. The sword met his claws with a burst of sparks. The other hunters lunged forward, shouting. "Ilara, move!" Cale roared. She stumbled back, heart in her throat, but when one of the hunters turned toward her, something surged up inside her, a heat, wild and blinding. The air shimmered around her hands. The man reached for her, and light exploded from her palms. A shockwave hurled him backward into the doorframe. The others froze, stunned. Even Cale turned, eyes wide. Ilara stared at her hands. They glowed faintly, threads of light crackling across her skin. She didn't know what she had done, only that it had come from somewhere deep, buried, and alive. Cale's voice was low, steady. "Control it," he said. "Before it controls you." Her breathing was ragged. "What is happening to me?" He met her gaze, his eyes burning crimson and something else, something like awe. "You," he said softly, "are not what you think you are." The hunters regrouped, ready to strike again. Cale stepped in front of her, his fangs flashing. "Stay behind me this time," he ordered. And for once, Ilara didn't argue. They fought like light and shadow. Cale moved with deadly precision, each blow a blur of motion. The hunters tried to surround him, but he was too fast. Steel met flesh, shouts filled the air, and within minutes, 2 were down. The third, the leader, raised his blade toward Ilara. She felt her pulse surge again, light building under her skin, desperate to escape. Cale saw it too. "Don't," he shouted. "You'll burn yourself." Too late. The energy burst out, striking the hunter square in the chest. He fell, motionless. Silence. The only sound left was rain dripping from the roof and the crackle of the fire still burning inside. Ilara stood trembling, staring at her hands as the light faded. I didn't mean to." Cale caught her before she fell. His grip was firm but gentle, steadying her. "You did what you had to," he said quietly. "You survived." Her vision blurred. What was that? He brushed a strand of wet hair from her face, his eyes softer now. "Power," he said. "Old and forgotten. The kind that shouldn't exist anymore." She shivered. "You mean me?" "I mean destiny," Cale replied. His voice dropped, rough and low. "And it's only just begun." The words hung in the air, heavy as thunder. Outside, the forest was silent again. Inside, Ilara realized her life, the safe, hidden life she had built, was gone. And sitting across from her, wounded and powerful and impossibly certain, was the reason why. Cale Draven, The alpha vampire. The storm hadn't just brought him to her door. It had brought her fate. Chapter 3, Shadows Beneath Skin. By the time the storm passed, the cabin smelled of smoke and blood. The hunters' bodies had vanished, burned into ash by some strange, silent heat that neither of them could explain. The floor was scorched where Ilara had stood. She hadn't moved for hours. Her hands still tingled with the memory of light, her mind trying to understand what had happened. Every few moments she looked down at her palms, half expecting them to glow again. Kale sat across from her, quiet, his wounds already closing. The firelight danced over his face, sharp and unreadable. His crimson eyes had dimmed to a dark wine red, still dangerous but calmer. Ilara broke the silence first. You said that power shouldn't exist anymore. What did you mean? Kale didn't answer immediately. He stared into the flames as though searching for the right words. Once, he said at last, long before my clan was born, there were beings called the Lightborn. Creatures of pure energy. They could heal or destroy anything they touched. The world feared them. She frowned. And you think I'm one of them? I think, Kale said slowly, that you carry their blood. Which makes you powerful. And hunted. Ilara shook her head, standing up. No. That's impossible. My mother was human. My father, she stopped. She had no memory of him at all, just a shadow and a scent of iron. Kale rose to his feet too. He was taller than she'd realized, his presence filled the small room. You were hidden for a reason, he said. That cabin, this forest, it's shielded by old magic. You've lived invisible to both sides. Until now. And now, she whispered. Now, every hunter in these woods will know your name. The words hit her like a blow. Ilara's pulse raced. Then you should leave. Kale tilted his head, almost smiling. You think I would leave you here after what I've seen? Yes, she said sharply. You barely know me. His eyes glinted. I know enough. You opened the door when you shouldn't have. You faced the order instead of running. And you bled light into the dark. Ilara crossed her arms, trying to ignore the warmth rising in her chest. You make it sound like I had a choice. You always have a choice, he said softly. The fire popped. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the air still carried the heavy silence that follows storms. Finally, Kale turned toward the window. We can't stay here. If they tracked me once, they'll return. They'll bring others. Ilara's voice was quiet. Where would we go? His gaze slid back to her. To the Nightborn stronghold. Deep in the mountains. It's the only place the Order won't follow. She laughed under her breath. A vampire fortress. You want me to walk into a nest of your kind? You saved my life, Kale said. They'll obey my command. And there, I can protect you. Teach you to use what's inside you before it kills you. Her heart thudded. And if I say no? He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the faint shimmer of his fangs when he spoke. Then they'll find you here, alone, and the next time, I won't be there to stop them. Ilara swallowed. The truth of it was written in his eyes. She hated that he was right. She hated even more how safe she felt when he was near. Fine, she said at last, her voice shaking. I'll go. But the moment your people try to bite me, I'm gone. Kale's lips curved faintly. Understood. He extended a hand. She hesitated, then took it. His skin was cool but steady, his grip careful, as though he knew exactly how fragile her world had just become. Outside, the mist thickened again. As they stepped into the forest, Ilara cast one last glance at the cabin that had kept her hidden for years. It had been her sanctuary. Now it was only ashes and ghosts. They walked through the forest for hours. The rain had left the ground slick, and Ilara stumbled more than once, though Kale moved like shadow, silent and effortless. Every so often she caught him watching her, not with hunger, but with something harder to name. Curiosity. Worry. Maybe recognition. What are you thinking? She asked once, half to break the silence. That you shouldn't be alive, he said without looking at her. Most who carry that kind of power burn out before they ever awaken it. Ilara gave a weak laugh. Encouraging. It means you're stronger than you know, he replied simply. They reached a ridge just before sunset. From there, she could see the valley stretching below, mist rolling over dark pines, mountains jagged in the distance. Somewhere beyond them, she knew, lay the world she'd run from. Kale stopped suddenly. We rest here, he said. Travel by night is safer. He crouched near a fallen tree, gathering dry wood with unnatural speed. Ilara watched him strike flint to spark, the fire catching immediately despite the damp air. When the flames rose, their light painted his features in gold and crimson. He looked less like a monster and more like a man caught between centuries. She found herself asking, quietly, why are they hunting you? Kale didn't answer at first. Then, because I defied them. The Crimson Order serves the Council of Hunters. They want every creature like me wiped out. I fought back. So you started a war, she said. He gave a humorless smile. They started it. I intend to finish it. There was something in his tone, a tired certainty that made her chest ache. She pulled her cloak tighter around her. And now I'm in the middle of it. He glanced at her then, eyes softening. Not by choice. But maybe by purpose. Ilara shook her head. Don't start with the destiny talk again. Kale's lips curved slightly. You still don't believe in fate. I believe in bad luck. His laugh was quiet but real. Then you'll fit right in. For the first time since the storm, she smiled back. Just a little. Chapter 4, The Blood Between Them. By dawn, the forest had gone silent again. The world held that fragile calm that only comes before everything changes. Ilara woke to find Kale already standing a few feet away, his back to her, the sunrise bleeding red and gold over the horizon. His shirt was torn again where the wounds had reopened. You're healing too fast, she said, pushing herself up. He didn't turn. Vampire blood does that. You lost a lot of it, she pointed out. Kale glanced over his shoulder. You sound concerned. She frowned. You saved my life. I'd rather not have to explain to your people why their king died on my watch. He chuckled quietly. You speak like someone who's used to taking care of others. Her throat tightened. Not anymore. They packed what little they had and continued east. The path climbed higher, the air growing colder. Every step took them deeper into territory that felt older, heavier, like the forest itself was listening. Kale spoke little, but when he did, it was to teach. How to listen for movement. How to mask her scent. How to quiet her energy so it wouldn't call predators to them. Your power doesn't sleep, he said as they walked. It hums beneath your skin, waiting. If you don't learn to control it, others will feel it before you even know it's awake. Like the hunters did. He nodded. They follow the pulse of it. The brighter the light, the easier the trail. Ilara looked down at her hands. Then maybe I should turn it off. Kale stopped, facing her. You can't turn off what you are. But you can shape it. He lifted a hand, touching 2 fingers to the center of her palm. Here. Breathe into it. Call the warmth, then quiet it. Ilara closed her eyes, trying to follow his voice. She felt it almost immediately, the hum he'd mentioned, alive beneath her skin, pulsing with every heartbeat. She tried to calm it, but it flared, flashing bright enough that she gasped. Focus, Kale said softly. It answers your emotions. Fear feeds it. So does anger. I'm not afraid, she lied. Then what are you? Her eyes opened, meeting his. Tired. He smiled faintly. That too. She exhaled slowly, the light dimming until it vanished. The forest around them seemed to breathe again. Well done, he said. It'll get easier. Ilara blinked, a little surprised at the quiet pride in his voice. You make it sound like I'm training for something. You are, Kale said. Survival. By nightfall, they reached the foothills of the mountains. The air smelled of frost and pine. Ahead, half hidden in the mist, a massive stone gate rose from the rock face, carved with symbols that glowed faintly red. Ilara stopped. That's your fortress? Kale's expression softened with something like relief. Home. Guards appeared from the shadows, tall figures with crimson eyes and armor black as obsidian. They knelt as Kale approached, but their gazes lingered on Elara, curious, wary, hungry. "Bring word to the council," Kale ordered. "I've returned. And she's with me." The guards exchanged looks. One dared to speak. "A human, my lord." Kale's tone was ice. "A guest. Touch her, and I'll end you myself." The guard lowered his head immediately. "Yes, my king." Elara exhaled shakily. "You have a strange way of making people comfortable." "They're not people," Kale said, his voice quiet now. "They're predators. Respect keeps them obedient. Fear keeps them loyal." She swallowed. "And what keeps you loyal?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Something I lost a long time ago." The gate opened with a deep, rumbling sound. Warm, reddish light spilled out, flickering like fire behind the stone walls. Elara followed him inside. The fortress was unlike anything she'd imagined, ancient, carved directly into the mountain, its halls lit by torches and veins of glowing crystal. The air hummed faintly, charged with power. Every vampire they passed bowed low, but not all with respect. Some whispered. Some sneered. Kale ignored them. "You'll rest here," he said, leading her to a smaller chamber off the main hall. A fire burned in the hearth, the bed draped with dark velvet. It was warmer than she expected. "You'll be safe here," he said. Elara raised an eyebrow. "Among your kind who clearly hate me? They fear what they don't understand," Kale said. "And you are something they've never seen." She met his gaze. "And you? Do you understand me?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "Not yet. But I will." Before she could reply, a voice echoed from the corridor, a woman's voice, smooth and cold. "My king," it said. "You've brought home quite a rumor." Elara turned to see her, tall, graceful, dressed in black silk, with eyes like sharpened glass. The way she looked at Elara was almost a challenge. Kale's tone shifted. "Lady Virel. This is Elara Vale. She saved my life." The woman's smile didn't reach her eyes. How noble. A human saving the Alpha. The council will love that story. Kale's jaw tightened. "She's under my protection." "I'm sure she is," Virel murmured, her gaze sliding back to Elara. "Be careful, little one. Our king has a habit of breaking what he means to keep." She glided away before Elara could think of a reply. Silence settled again. Kale's face was unreadable. "She doesn't like me," Elara said finally. "She doesn't like anyone," Kale replied. "But she's dangerous. Stay away from her." Elara nodded slowly, though her heart was still racing. "You have quite the welcoming committee." Kale turned toward the door. "Rest. Tomorrow, we begin." "Begin what?" He glanced back at her, eyes glowing faintly red in the torchlight. "Your training. You can't hide what you are anymore. You'll need to learn to survive this world and the one that's coming." Then he was gone, leaving her alone with the fire and her thoughts. Elara sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands again. The faintest shimmer of light still flickered beneath her skin. She didn't know if she was ready for what came next. But something inside her, something fierce and new, whispered that ready or not, she would no longer be forgotten. Chapter 5. The Alpha's Claim. The fortress never truly slept. Long after midnight, whispers drifted through the stone corridors, the sound of vampires moving, plotting, watching. Elara could hear them even from her room. They spoke her name like a rumor that would not die. She sat by the window, staring out at the mountain peaks. The moonlight painted everything silver. She couldn't tell if she was still the same woman who had lived in that quiet cabin days ago. That Elara had been invisible. This one was being hunted by both monsters and kings. A knock echoed against her door. "Enter," she said softly. Kale stepped inside. He was no longer dressed in torn battle clothes. He wore dark armor that fit like it was born from shadow. The firelight caught in his crimson eyes. "You're awake," he said. "I don't think I've really slept since you showed up at my door," she admitted. He smiled faintly. "You'll adjust." "Will I?" Kale walked closer, studying her. "You're afraid." "I'm smart," she corrected. "Your people look at me like I'm dinner. They won't touch you." "Because you said so?" He didn't flinch. "Because I claimed it." She blinked. Claimed what? You, he said simply. Ilara froze. You can't just. I can, Cale interrupted, his tone firm but not cruel. In my world, protection must be declared. If I don't, they'll test you. Challenge you. You won't survive that yet. Yet, she echoed. You think I'll get used to this? I think, he said, stepping closer, you were never meant to live small. The words sank into her chest like a spark waiting to catch. She looked away before he could read it on her face. You talk like you know everything. Only what I've seen, he replied quietly. And what I see now is someone fighting herself more than her enemies. Ilara opened her mouth, but nothing came out. He wasn't wrong. Cale turned toward the door. Training starts at dawn. Rest while you can. Before he left, she said, why do you care, Cale? You could have left me to die. He paused, his hand on the doorframe. Because, he said, his voice low, when you burned that hunter with your light, I felt it in my blood. I think our fates are tied, whether either of us likes it or not. And then he was gone, leaving her heart pounding in the silence. Morning came painted in gold and shadow. The fortress courtyard was alive with motion, soldiers drilling, messengers rushing, the hum of power in the air. Ilara followed Cale through the noise, trying not to stare too openly. Some vampires bowed when they passed. Others didn't. Their eyes followed her with curiosity and thinly veiled contempt. They're not used to outsiders, Cale murmured. They're not used to humans, she countered. They will be, he said. They reached a wide stone circle at the center of the courtyard. Runes were carved into the ground, glowing faintly with red energy. Cale gestured for her to step inside. This is a training ward, he explained. It dampens power just enough to make control possible. You'll start by summoning light without destroying the courtyard. Encouraging, she muttered. He smiled. You'll do fine. Cale guided her through breathing patterns, slow, deliberate, grounding. The light inside you isn't your enemy, he said. It's alive, but it listens to emotion. You must be calm before you call it. Ilara closed her eyes. She tried to focus on her breath, on the warmth that always flickered just beneath her skin. It came faster than she expected, a pulse of heat that rolled through her chest, rising to her hands. Light spilled across her fingers, soft and steady this time. Good, Cale said. Now hold it. She did. The glow shimmered like sunlight through glass. For the first time, it didn't hurt. It felt beautiful. Then a thought slipped through her control. What if it breaks again? The light flared violently, nearly blinding her. Cale moved instantly, catching her hands in his, steadying her before the surge could explode. Breathe, he commanded. Don't fight it. Guide it. Ilara gasped, forcing the energy back down. Slowly, the brightness dimmed until it vanished. Her knees felt weak. Cale's hands were still wrapped around hers. You did well. I almost burned your courtyard down, she said shakily. He smiled, a rare warmth in his expression. Almost. Progress. Despite herself, she laughed softly. The sound startled them both. That night, she found herself replaying the moment, his voice, his touch, the way the light had obeyed her for a heartbeat. She hadn't felt powerful in years. But not everyone in the fortress shared Cale's faith. As she left the training hall, she heard whispers near the arches. Two vampires, their voices sharp and low. She's a danger, one said. Did you see what she did today? That light nearly tore the wards apart. She's human, the other hissed. He's losing his mind. The council won't allow it. Ilara clenched her fists but kept walking. By the time she reached her chamber, Cale was waiting there, leaning against the wall like he'd been carved from it. You heard them, he said quietly. I did, she admitted. Are they wrong? He pushed away from the wall, stepping close enough that she could see the faint shimmer of his fangs. They fear you. Fear makes fools speak loudly. And what do you feel? She asked. Cale's eyes darkened. I feel what I always do, the pull toward danger. Ilara's pulse quickened. You should resist it. He smiled faintly. I've never been good at resisting what I want. She looked away, pretending not to understand the meaning behind his words. But she felt it, a tension thick as lightning. Before she could speak, a horn sounded from deep within the fortress. Cale's head snapped toward the door, his expression shifting instantly from calm to command. "Stay here," he said. "What's happening?" "An envoy from the Nightshade clan. They won't come in peace." Then he was gone again, leaving the air around her vibrating with both danger and something far more complicated. Chapter 6: The Challenge of Fire and Blood. The Nightshade clan arrived at sunset. Ilara watched from the upper balcony, hidden behind one of the carved pillars. The great hall below blazed with torches as the visitors entered, tall figures cloaked in black, their presence heavy with menace. At their head was a man with skin pale as bone and eyes like shards of obsidian. His name whispered through the crowd, Lord Casriel of Nightshade. Cale stood at the dais, calm but coiled like a drawn bow. "Cale Draven," Casriel said, his voice smooth as oil. "The Alpha who shelters humans. How the mighty have fallen." A murmur spread through the court. Cale didn't move. "Choose your words carefully, Casriel. My patience is thin." Casriel smiled coldly. "Then perhaps you'll enjoy truth. You've brought danger into your walls. That girl, the Lightbearer, she's a curse waiting to burn us all." The murmurs grew louder. Ilara's stomach twisted. Every gaze in the hall seemed to turn in her direction, even though she was hidden. Cale's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "She saved my life. Without her, this fortress would already be ashes. Or perhaps," Casriel countered, "it will be because of her." Something in Cale's expression hardened. He stepped down from the dais. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath. "You've made your point," Cale said. "Now leave." But Casriel's eyes gleamed with challenge. "Not until I see this creature you protect." The words barely left his mouth before the heavy doors at the back of the hall opened. Ilara froze. All eyes turned as she stepped forward, though she hadn't meant to. Something in her, pride, anger, defiance, refused to stay hidden. Casriel's lips curved. "So. The human." Ilara lifted her chin. "So. The coward who hides behind accusations." Laughter rippled through the crowd, sharp and dangerous. Cale's mouth twitched, half warning, half pride. Casriel's smile vanished. "Bold words. Let's see if they burn as brightly as your light." He drew a blade, thin and curved, dark energy crawling along its edge. "One strike," he said. "If you survive, you stay. If not, the king learns humility." The hall erupted in murmurs again. Cale's eyes flared crimson. "You will not touch her." But Ilara's voice rose before his could. "Let him." The words surprised even her. Cale turned sharply. "Ilara." She met his gaze steadily. "If I don't stand for myself now, I never will." For a moment, silence. Then Cale stepped back, his expression unreadable. "Then stand. But remember what you've learned." Casriel moved first, impossibly fast, a blur of black steel. Ilara barely had time to react. The blade swept toward her, cutting through air, and instinct roared awake. Light burst from her palms, meeting the attack with a crack like thunder. Sparks flew, scattering across the stone floor. Gasps echoed through the hall. Casriel staggered back, eyes narrowing. Impressive. For a spark. Ilara's breath came fast, but her voice was steady. "Want to see a fire?" The next blast came stronger. A wave of white energy surged outward, slamming into Casriel's chest and throwing him against the far wall. The torches flickered wildly. The entire hall glowed. When the light faded, Casriel knelt on one knee, coughing blood, his weapon shattered. No one spoke. Cale's voice carried through the silence. "Does anyone else wish to test her?" No one moved. Ilara stood trembling, her body exhausted but her spirit blazing. For the first time, she didn't feel like a mistake or an exile. She felt like power. Casriel rose slowly, his expression twisted with fury and something close to fear. "This isn't over," he hissed. Cale's gaze was steel. "You're right. It's only begun." Casriel turned and stalked out, his followers trailing behind. The heavy doors slammed shut behind them. The hall erupted, some in applause, others in whispers. Cale ignored them all. He crossed the floor and caught Elara by the shoulders. "You could have been killed," he said, his tone rough. "I wasn't," she replied. "You don't understand," he said. "Every eye in this fortress saw you stand against him. That means every threat now sees you as more than prey." "Then let them," Elara said quietly. "I'm done hiding." Cale stared at her, his anger fading into something else, admiration, maybe awe. Finally, he exhaled. "You're reckless." She smiled faintly. "So are you." For a moment, their gazes held two forces that shouldn't exist in the same world, bound by something neither could name. Then Cale turned away. "Rest. You'll need your strength. The Nightshade will not forget this." Elara watched him leave, the sound of his footsteps echoing through the hall. She knew he was right. The battle might have ended, but the war had only just begun. Still, for the first time in years, she felt alive. Not forgotten. Not invisible. Alive and unstoppable. Chapter 7, Whispers of the Court. The fortress no longer whispered Elara's name like a rumor, it shouted it. Every corridor she walked through held eyes that followed her, some awed, some hostile, all uncertain. The story of how a human girl had thrown Lord Casriel across the hall spread through the mountain like wildfire. Elara wished they would forget, but Cale had warned her, vampires never forget power. They measure it. That morning, she was summoned to the council chamber. Cale walked beside her in silence, his cloak sweeping the stone floor. The great doors opened to reveal a circle of elders, pale, elegant, and ancient, their expressions carved from ice. At their center sat Lady Virel. Her black silk glimmered like oil, and the faintest smile curved her lips when she saw Elara. Cale inclined his head to the council. "You called for me." "We called for both of you," Virel said. "Your guest has disrupted centuries of order. The clans demand explanation." Cale's tone stayed calm. "She's no threat." Virel's gaze slid to Elara. "Then why does the air itself hum when she breathes?" Elara met her stare, refusing to shrink. "Maybe your halls are allergic to sunlight." A few of the younger vampires snorted before remembering themselves. Virel's smile didn't reach her eyes. Brave words from someone who doesn't understand what she is. "Then explain it," Elara shot back. "Because everyone seems to know more about me than I do." The elders murmured among themselves. Finally, the oldest among them spoke, his voice a rasp of dust. "We've seen this before, long ago. Lightborn blood has returned." Cale stiffened. "Impossible. That line died out millennia ago." "Apparently not," the elder said. "And if the prophecies are true, the Lightborn either save the clans or destroy them." Silence fell. Elara felt all eyes turn toward her. Save or destroy. Nothing in between. She swallowed hard. "I didn't ask for any of this." "No one ever does," the elder murmured. "But power chooses. It rarely asks permission." Virel leaned back, satisfied. "There. Now we understand what the Alpha shelters, a weapon wrapped in fragile skin." Cale's voice cut through the tension. "Enough. She is under my protection. Any threat against her is a threat against me." Virel's eyes gleamed. "Then you've made your claim clear, my king." The meeting ended in uneasy silence. When the doors closed behind them, Elara finally let out the breath she'd been holding. "They hate me," she said. Cale looked down at her. "They fear you. There's a difference." "It feels the same." He didn't answer, only placed a hand on her shoulder. "Come. You need air." They climbed to the upper terraces where the wind cut sharp and cold. The sky above the mountains was streaked with crimson clouds. Elara leaned against the stone railing, staring out. "What happens if they decide I'm a threat?" she asked quietly. "Then they'll try to control you," Cale said. "Or destroy you. Which is why we have to stay ahead of them." Her pulse quickened. "We?" "Yes," he said. "You think I'll let them touch you now?" She turned to face him. "Why risk everything for me?" Cale's gaze softened. "Because you remind me of what I once was, someone who thought being alone meant being safe." The words hit deeper than she wanted them to. The wind whipped strands of hair across her face. He reached out, brushed them back without thinking. For a heartbeat the world went still. "Kale," she began. But footsteps echoed from the stairwell. A young soldier approached, bowing quickly. "My king, urgent news. Scouts report Crimson Order banners at the forest's edge. They've found the trail." Kale's expression hardened. "How many?" "Dozens. Maybe more." Ilara's blood ran cold. "They followed us." "No," Kale said. "They followed you." He turned to the soldier. "Send word to prepare the defenses. And double the guard around her chambers." When the soldier hurried off, Ilara grabbed Kale's arm. "You can't keep me locked up like a prisoner." "I can keep you alive," he said. "I can fight." His jaw tightened. "Not yet." "Then teach me faster." Her tone surprised him and herself, but she didn't look away. Kale's eyes flared faintly, a spark of respect mingled with exasperation. "So be it," he said. "We start at dawn." The following days blurred into motion, hours of practice within the warded circle, every lesson harsher than the last. Kale pushed her until her arms shook and her vision swam, yet each time she fell, he was there to steady her. He taught her to channel the light through movement, swift, focused strikes of energy rather than wild bursts. She learned to defend, to read intent, to feel the rhythm of magic as if it were a heartbeat. By the third night, she could call the glow at will and extinguish it with a breath. It no longer felt like something foreign, it felt like part of her. After one exhausting session, Kale offered her a hand. "You're improving." Ilara managed a smile. "I haven't burned the courtyard in 2 days. I'd call that progress." "You're stronger than most warriors I've trained," he said. "And far more stubborn. Coming from you, I'll take that as praise." He laughed softly, a rare sound. It was meant as one. But beneath the humor, tension still coiled. They both knew the hunters were coming. And beyond the walls, the Nightshade clan was watching, waiting for Kale to falter. Chapter 8, The Alpha's Bond. The fortress prepared for war. Banners were lowered, weapons sharpened, and the air itself hummed with anticipation. Every corner of the stronghold carried the scent of steel and ash. Ilara trained until her hands ached, until light trembled at her fingertips like a living thing. Kale was everywhere, commanding troops, planning defenses, yet somehow always returning to the training grounds when she needed him most. One evening, as twilight bled into night, she found him standing on the battlements overlooking the valley. Below, fires burned where scouts had sighted the enemy. "You should be resting," he said without turning. "So should you." "I don't sleep much." She stepped beside him. "They'll attack soon." "Yes," he said. "They'll strike at the weak points first. Test our walls. When they realize you're here, they'll come harder." Ilara stared at the horizon where darkness swallowed the trees. "I hate waiting." Kale looked at her then, his eyes glowing faintly red. "You're not built to wait. That's what makes you dangerous." "Dangerous," she repeated, almost laughing. "Everyone keeps calling me that like it's supposed to be an insult." "It's a warning," Kale said. "Even to me." Their gazes held. The wind carried the smell of rain and smoke. Somewhere below, a horn sounded in the distance. Ilara broke the silence. "When this is over, if we survive, what happens to me?" "You'll decide that," Kale said. "You've earned the right to choose your own path. And if I chose to leave?" His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Then I'll make sure the world doesn't destroy you for it." She smiled sadly. "Always the protector." "It's all I know," he said quietly. "Until you." Before she could answer, a messenger raced up the stairs. "My king, the scouts have captured one of the Order's priests. He claims he came with a message." Kale's brow furrowed. "Bring him." Moments later, 2 guards dragged in a thin man dressed in scorched robes marked with crimson sigils. His eyes gleamed with fanatic light. Kale faced him. "Speak." The priest grinned through blooded lips. "We come for the light-bearer. Hand her over, and perhaps the rest of your kind will see another dawn." Ilara felt the room tilt, but Kale's voice was ice. "You dare threaten my people in my home?" The priest spat. "You defy the natural order." The union of shadow and light is blasphemy. Kale stepped closer. Then consider me a heretic. With one motion he struck the man unconscious. Take him to the dungeons. I want every word he knows. As the guards dragged the body away, Elara whispered, they won't stop, will they? No, Kale said. They never stop. He turned to her then, eyes fierce. Which is why you need to be ready for what comes next. That night, he brought her to a chamber deep beneath the fortress. The walls shimmered with protective runes. In the center stood a stone altar, etched with light and shadow intertwined. This is the heart of the fortress, Kale said. Every alpha before me has used this place to forge bonds with warriors, with clans, with allies. Elara frowned. Bonds. A promise sealed by power. It connects lives. Strength flows between them. He met her gaze. It can't be broken. Realization hit her. You mean, you want to link our power? Yes, he said. If they strike at me, you'll feel it. If they strike at you, I'll know. It's the only way to keep you safe in battle. She hesitated. And the cost? He hesitated too. Once joined, neither of us can hide from the other. For a long moment they simply stood there, the air pulsing between them. Then Elara nodded. Do it. Kale stepped closer, raising his hand. A faint red glow spread from his palm, light rose to meet it from hers. The two energies met in the air, twisting together red and white, shadow and flame until they sank into their skin like breath. A surge rushed through her, sharp and dizzying. For an instant she saw flashes that weren't hers, Kale's memories, battles fought, centuries of loneliness. Then it was gone. When she opened her eyes, he was breathing hard. A faint symbol burned faintly at the base of her wrist, the mirror of one on his. It's done, he said. She looked down at the mark. It doesn't hurt. It will, if one of us falls. She met his gaze. Then let's make sure neither of us does. A small smile touched his lips. You sound like a queen giving orders. Maybe I'm learning from one, she replied. They left the chamber together. Outside, the fortress buzzed with preparation, soldiers arming themselves, torches blazing in the halls. Somewhere beyond the mountain, the Crimson Order gathered their armies. As they walked toward the war that awaited, Elara felt the hum of the bond between them, a pulse steady and certain, like two heartbeats in rhythm. She was no longer the woman who had hidden from the world. She was light bound to darkness, strength born from fear, ready to meet the night. Chapter 9. The Weight of Power. The following morning broke grey and heavy with mist. The fortress moved like a living thing preparing to fight. Armor clanged, banners snapped in the cold wind, and messengers hurried through shadowed corridors. Elara stood on the upper terrace, the mountain stretching below her like a sea of clouds. The new mark on her wrist glowed faintly with each heartbeat. The bond. It still felt strange, not painful, just present, like a quiet pulse in the back of her mind. Sometimes, when she focused, she could feel Kale's energy somewhere in the fortress, distant but steady. She was no longer invisible. That thought both thrilled and terrified her. Kale appeared at the doorway, his armor dark as ink and lined with silver. You can feel it, can't you? He asked. She didn't turn. It's like standing near thunder. That's the bond. It will warn you when I'm in danger, and me, when you are. Elara looked at him over her shoulder. And if one of us dies? He met her gaze evenly. The other follows soon after. She forced a shaky smile. No pressure, then. Kale stepped beside her. Pressure keeps you alive. They stood in silence, listening to the fortress wake. Finally, Elara said, You really believe this will work us, against all of them? I do, Kale said simply. Because power like yours doesn't appear by accident. She almost laughed. You talk like you've seen prophecy. He gave a faint smile. Maybe I have. Before she could respond, a horn blared from below. Kale's expression sharpened. The scouts, he said. They've reached the lower pass. What does that mean? It means the order has begun moving through the forest. The first wave. Elara's pulse spiked. Then we need to. No, Kale said firmly. You're not leaving the fortress. Not yet. I can fight. You will, he promised. But on my command. Something in his tone silenced her, though frustration burned hot under her skin. He turned toward the stairs. I'll return before nightfall. Don't stray from the wards. As he left, Ilara watched the mist swallow him. The bond between them hummed faintly, a whisper of energy that made her chest ache. The day dragged into uneasy quiet. She tried to distract herself, sparring in the training yard, practicing focus, but her mind kept drifting to the pulse in her wrist. Every time Cale's heartbeat quickened, she felt it echo faintly through her own chest. When he calmed, the rhythm slowed. It was comforting. It was maddening. By late afternoon, she sensed a tremor, sudden, sharp, like the snap of ice. Cale. His heartbeat surged. Cale, she whispered, though she knew he couldn't hear her. The bond burned warm against her skin. Without thinking, she ran. Guards shouted after her as she raced through the corridors, down the stairs, and toward the outer gates. The mist outside had turned thick and red-tinged with sunset. Somewhere in that fog, Cale fought. She found him at the southern wall, surrounded by fallen soldiers. His sword dripped with black blood, his armor cracked, his movements slowing. The creatures around him weren't human, twisted shapes of ash and bone, summoned by the Crimson Order's priests. Cale, she shouted. He turned, startled, just as one of the monsters lunged for him. Ilara didn't think, she raised her hands and let the light go. A blast of white fire tore through the air, disintegrating the creature instantly. Cale blinked once, then grinned despite the chaos. You never listen. I learned from the best, she said, stepping beside him. Together, they fought. His blade cut through darkness, her light burned through what it couldn't reach. Each move felt like rhythm, strike and flare, shadow and flame. The bond pulsed stronger, their energies sinking until the battlefield itself seemed to move with them. When the last creature fell, silence returned except for their ragged breathing. Cale turned to her, his eyes bright with exhaustion and pride. You disobeyed me, he said. You're welcome, she answered. He laughed once, low, rough, real. Remind me never to give you orders. Too late, she said, smiling faintly. Then her knees buckled. The bond flared hot, and she gasped. Cale caught her instantly. You're burning out, he said. You used too much energy too fast. I'm fine, but her vision blurred. The light under her skin dimmed and then vanished entirely. Cale lifted her effortlessly. You're not fine. You need to rest. As darkness closed in, she heard him whisper, soft, unguarded, You're the fire I never expected to find again. When Ilara woke, she was back in her chamber. The room was dim, the only light from the fire. Her wrist still glowed faintly, steadier now. The bond pulsed calm. Cale was alive. He sat nearby, his armor gone, exhaustion etched in every line of his face. When he saw her stir, relief flickered in his eyes. You shouldn't have come. You'd be dead if I hadn't, she said weakly. Possibly, he admitted. But if the bond had snapped, he didn't finish the thought. Silence stretched between them, heavy with everything neither wanted to say. Finally, Ilara sat up. You keep risking yourself for me. Cale met her gaze. Maybe I'm just returning the favor. She wanted to argue, but the truth sat too close to her heart. Instead, she said quietly, we can't win this war if we keep saving each other one by one. No, Cale said. We'll win it by standing together. Chapter 10, The Betrayal in Shadow. The next morning, the fortress felt different. Too quiet. Even the air seemed tense. Cale left early to meet with his captains, leaving Ilara with orders to rest. But rest was impossible. She wandered through the halls, trying to shake the feeling that eyes followed her wherever she went. They did. Whispers trailed in her wake. Words like witch and weapon hissed behind her back. The admiration she'd felt after defeating Kazriel had soured into something sharper. She found herself near the library, a vast room filled with ancient scrolls and carved pillars. The silence there was heavy, almost sacred. She reached for a book at random, trying to quiet her thoughts. Lightborn don't usually read vampire history. Ilara turned. Lady Virel stood at the far end of the aisle, her black gown whispering against the stone floor. She moved closer, each step graceful, predatory. Ilara tensed. I thought the council preferred to observe from a distance. Virel smiled thinly. Some things require a personal touch. What do you want? To warn you, Virel said. Kale may protect you now, but protection from him is not the same as safety. Ilara frowned. You think I need saving from him? I think you have no idea what kind of creature you've tied yourself to. Virel's gaze flicked to the glowing mark on Ilara's wrist. That bond, once forged, it changes him. It changes you. His darkness will feed on your light until nothing remains of either. Ilara's stomach twisted. You're lying. Am I? Virel tilted her head. Ask yourself why you feel his emotions like your own. Why every time he draws blood, you flinch. The bond is a chain, not a promise. Ilara stepped back. You hate me because he chose me. Virel's eyes glinted. No, dear. I hate what you'll do to him. Then she turned and walked away, her voice drifting like smoke. When the bond consumes you both, remember who warned you. Ilara stood frozen long after she was gone. That night, Kale returned later than usual. He looked tired, his jaw tight with unspoken frustration. Another attack? She asked. No, he said. Worse. The Nightshade are stirring again. Casriel's men are spreading rumors through the lower ranks that I'm cursed, that you're controlling me. Because of the bond? Yes. And the council is listening. Ilara hesitated. Virel said. Kale cut her off sharply. Virel would burn the world to prove she's right. She said the bond changes us, Ilara pressed. That your darkness feeds on my light. Kale's expression hardened. She wants you afraid. Is she wrong? For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, quietly, the bond is powerful. It connects what shouldn't be connected. I won't lie, it will test us both. Ilara exhaled. So it's true. It means nothing unless we let it, Kale said firmly. She wants you to doubt me. Don't give her that victory. Ilara wanted to believe him. She did believe him, but the unease lingered. Later, when the fortress slept, Ilara found herself wandering again. The bond thrummed faintly. Kale was awake somewhere far below. She followed the pulse instinctively, drawn down winding staircases into parts of the fortress she had never seen. The corridors grew darker, lit only by the faint red veins in the walls. At the end of one passage, she heard voices. Can't keep her alive, a man whispered. If the council refuses to act, we will. She's too dangerous, another said. He's blind to it. Ilara pressed closer, recognizing one of the voices, Virel. She's already weakening him, Virel said coldly. The bond ties his power to hers. Kill her, and he'll fall with her. Ilara's heart pounded. Kill her. Her hand glowed faintly in the dark, light rising in response to fear. She turned and ran before they could sense her presence. Kale found her pacing her chamber minutes later, trembling. What happened? He demanded. They're planning to kill me, she said. Your council, Virel and the others. Kale's expression turned to steel. Who did you hear? All of them, she said. They think if I die, you'll fall too. He cursed softly in a language she didn't know. I should have ended this before it began. You can't just. He crossed the room in 2 strides, gripping her shoulders. I won't let them touch you. Ilara met his eyes. You can't protect me from everyone. If I'm going to survive this, I have to stand on my own. Kale stared at her for a long time, then nodded slowly. Then we'll stand together. The firelight flickered between them. The fortress beyond their walls buzzed with unrest, whispers of betrayal, fear, and war. But in that moment, they stood side by side, unbroken. For the first time since the storm that had brought them together, Ilara no longer felt like prey. She felt like fire, and the world was about to burn. Chapter 11, Blood in the Hall. The fortress woke to alarms. Ilara was on her feet before dawn, the sound of horns cutting through the cold air. She ran to the balcony and saw torches moving through the lower courts, guards shouting, soldiers rushing to arms. Somewhere below, metal clashed. Kale appeared in the doorway, already armored. Stay here, he ordered. No, she said instantly. Tell me what's happening. The Crimson Order breached one of the outer tunnels. A scouting force, small, but too close. He caught her wrist, the bond between them flaring hot. I'll deal with it. You're not leaving me behind again. He hesitated, then cursed softly. Fine. Stay behind me. They descended into chaos. The lower halls blazed with red light, the smell of smoke heavy in the air. When they reached the eastern gate, Elara saw the enemy, humans cloaked in ash-grey armor, their weapons glowing with runes meant to burn through vampire flesh. Kale drew his blade. Keep your light focused. Don't overreach. She nodded once. The first wave struck. Kale moved like a storm, every blow precise, his shadow bending the air. Elara held her ground, releasing bursts of white energy that shattered weapons and blinded attackers. Each pulse left her trembling, but the bond steadied her. She felt Kale's strength flow through it like heat through steel. When the last of the order fell, silence rolled back across the hall. The vampires watching from the upper balconies stared at Elara with open fear. One stepped forward, Virel. She clapped slowly, her expression unreadable. Impressive. You glow brighter with every kill. Kale wiped blood from his sword. You should thank her. You'd be ashes without her. Virel's smile sharpened. Or perhaps we'd be free. The tension snapped like wire. Kale's eyes burned red. Choose your next words carefully. Truth needs no care, Virel said. Every moment she breathes, the bond tightens around you. Can't you feel it? She's already feeding on your power. Elara's stomach twisted. That's a lie. Is it? Virel pointed toward the floor. The runes that lined the hall were flickering, dimmer than before. The fortress drains faster now. The bond steals energy to sustain itself. Kale glanced down, a flicker of doubt in his face. Virel saw it and smiled. You feel it too. Enough, Kale said. We'll repair the wards. But whispers had already begun spreading through the watching soldiers. The bond is bleeding the fortress dry. Elara felt their eyes on her, fearful, accusing. Her pulse thudded painfully in her wrist. Kale grabbed her hand. Don't listen. I'm not, she said, though the lie trembled in her throat. They left the hall together, the murmurs chasing them like ghosts. Back in her chamber, Elara paced before the fire. Every time she tried to calm herself, the bond hummed louder, feeding on her unrest. She's turning them against me, she muttered. Kale leaned against the wall, silent. She's not wrong about the wards, he said finally. I can feel the drain. But it's not you, Elara. It's the Order's sigils. They poison magic. Then tell them that. They wouldn't believe me. He pushed off the wall, moving closer. They're frightened, and fear needs a target. Me, she whispered. He nodded once. We'll fix the wards at dawn. After that, no one can claim you weaken the fortress. Elara looked up at him, exhaustion softening her voice. You keep saying we. Because you're part of this now, he said. You always will be. Dawn came pale and cold. Together they descended to the lower sanctum where the fortress heart pulsed, a crystal vein running through the mountain's core. The light inside it flickered faintly, the once steady rhythm faltering. Kale pressed his hand against the stone. The Order's poison runs deep. Can it be healed? He looked at her. Yes, if your light touches it. Elara hesitated. What if Virel is right? What if my power? Look at me, Kale said. When she did, his voice softened. You are not the sickness here. You are the cure. She exhaled and placed her palms against the stone. The light rose instantly, streaming from her skin into the crystal. Heat surged through her body, brilliant and terrible. The entire mountain seemed to hum. Kale's voice echoed beside her. Steady. Guide it, don't fight it. She focused, breathing slowly. The crystal brightened, the poison fading until only clear light remained. When it was done, she fell to her knees, drained but alive. Kale caught her before she hit the ground. The glow in his eyes softened. You did it. The fortress seemed to breathe again, the runes on the walls brightened one by one. The whispering would have to quiet, at least for now. Elara smiled weakly. Then we're safe. For the moment, Kale said. But peace never lasts. He was right. It lasted less than a night. Chapter 12, The Fracture Between Them. By evening, the fortress was buzzing again. The repaired wards hummed with energy, but the air between Kale and Ilara felt strained. Too many eyes, too many doubts. Ilara found Kale in the war room surrounded by captains. Maps covered the table, lines of red ink tracing the enemy's approach. When she entered, conversation stopped. Kale dismissed the others with a gesture. They left reluctantly, their glances sharp with curiosity. "You shouldn't be here," he said when they were alone. "I needed to see you," she replied. "The fortress is healed, but everyone still looks at me like I'll explode." "You frightened them," he said. "Power always does." She crossed her arms. "And what about you? Do I frighten you too?" Kale met her gaze. "Yes." The honesty in his voice startled her. "You think I'll hurt you?" she asked quietly. "No," he said. "I'm afraid of what happens if you're gone." Something twisted inside her chest. The bond pulsed, echoing his emotion. She could feel it raw and real. "You can't build your world around me," she said. "I'm not." "You are," he interrupted. "You're the only reason this fortress still stands." Ilara shook her head. "That's exactly why they hate me." Before Kale could answer, the doors burst open. A guard stumbled in, pale and shaking. "My lord, the northern gate." An explosion. "The wards are collapsing." Kale was already moving. "Stay here." "I'm coming," Ilara said. He didn't argue this time. The northern gate was chaos. Smoke poured through the tunnels, flames licking at the walls. Soldiers shouted, trying to contain the fire. At the center of the destruction lay a shattered crystal core, the heart of the secondary ward. Kale knelt beside it, his face grim. This wasn't an attack. Someone sabotaged it from inside. Ilara felt the bond surge again, a warning spike of danger. She turned sharply just as a blade hissed through the air. Kale caught it mid-strike. The attacker, a vampire soldier, snarled, eyes glowing with frenzy. "You've doomed us all," he shouted. "The Lightborn will destroy everything." Kale struck him down with one clean motion. The hall fell silent except for the crackle of flames. Ilara stared at the dead soldier. "They're turning on us." Kale's jaw tightened. "Virel's poison runs deep." "Then stop her," Ilara said. "Before she stops us." "I will," he promised. But she saw the shadow behind his words. He didn't know how far the rot had spread. That night, rain lashed against the fortress. Ilara stood by the window, watching lightning split the sky. She could feel Kale's presence through the bond, heavy and restless somewhere below. A knock came at her door. She turned, expecting him, but it wasn't Kale. It was one of his captains, a tall vampire named Dareth. "My lady," he said, bowing slightly. "The king requests your presence in the lower hall." She frowned. "Now?" "Immediately." Something in his tone felt off, too formal, too careful. Still, she followed. The corridors were quiet, the torches burning low. Dareth led her down staircases she didn't recognize. When they reached the lower hall, it was empty. "Where's Kale?" she asked. Dareth turned, his expression twisting. "Forgive me." He lunged. Ilara barely ducked in time. His strike sliced across her shoulder, pain flaring white-hot. She threw up her hands, light bursting outward and hurling him back. "Why?" she gasped. "You've cursed us," he shouted. "The council ordered it end you, end the bond." Before he could rise, Ilara released another pulse. This one hit harder, sending him crashing into the wall. When he didn't move again, she staggered backward, breath ragged. Through the bond, she felt Kale's rage ignite, sharp, burning, unmistakable. A heartbeat later he was there, sword in hand, eyes blazing. He saw the blood on her shoulder, the body on the floor. "Who did this?" "Your council," she said. "They sent him to kill me." Kale's fury filled the room like heat. "I'll tear this fortress apart stone by stone if I have to." "Kale." But he was already gone, the bond trailing a storm of emotion behind him: anger, betrayal, grief. Ilara sank to her knees, pressing her hand against the wound. Her light flared weakly, sealing the cut, but the ache ran deeper than flesh. She had known fear before. She had known loneliness. But this was the first time she truly understood what it meant to be hunted by those you'd saved. The night ended with screams echoing through the halls. Kale found Virel in the council chamber, her followers gathered around her. Ilara reached the door in time to see the aftermath, the shattered table, the stunned faces, Virel kneeling with a blade at her throat. Kale's voice was quiet, dangerous. "You sent assassins into my hall." Virel's smile was defiant. "I did what you were too blind to do. The bond is a curse." "Then let the curse speak for itself," Kale said, stepping aside. Ilara walked forward, blood still staining her sleeve. "You wanted proof I'm not your doom? Look around you. You nearly destroyed yourselves trying to kill me." The room fell silent. Kale lowered his sword but didn't look away from Virel. "This ends tonight." Virel's eyes flashed. "You think they'll obey you after this? Half the fortress already doubts your rule." "Then I'll remind them why I'm king," Kale said. His voice was calm, absolute. "And why she stands beside me." The declaration rang through the chamber like thunder. Every vampire present bowed, some out of loyalty, others out of fear, but they bowed. When it was over, Kale turned to Ilara. "It's not enough to survive anymore. We have to lead." Ilara looked at the kneeling council, the frightened faces, the endless shadows that waited beyond the mountain. "I never wanted to lead," she said. Kale's gaze softened. "Neither did I. But here we are." Outside, lightning split the sky again, illuminating the fortress walls. The storm had only begun, but for the first time, they faced it side by side, bound by choice as much as fate. Chapter 13, The War of the Clans. The fortress did not rest after that night. Virel's rebellion had failed, but her words lingered like poison. The halls still buzzed with whispers. Some obeyed Kale out of fear, others out of loyalty, but none forgot what they had seen, the king and the light-born woman who defied centuries of order. Ilara could feel the unease pressing in from all sides. Every time she walked through the corridors, the guards straightened, pretending not to stare. Every council meeting began with silence too long to be polite. Kale hid his anger well, but the tension lived in his shoulders, in the way he lingered near the windows, watching for movement beyond the mountains. The Nightshade clan hadn't answered his warnings. That could only mean one thing. "They're gathering," Kale said quietly, as he studied the maps sprawled across the war table. "Kazriel won't stop until he's broken me, or taken you." Ilara stood beside him, tracing the red lines that marked enemy movements. "Then we strike first." Kale looked at her. "You're not a soldier." "I'm something worse," she said. "A reason they're coming." He wanted to argue, but he saw the truth in her eyes. The Crimson Order and the Nightshade had joined forces for one purpose, to capture or destroy her. "If I'm what they want," Ilara continued, "then we make that our advantage." "You mean bait," Kale said. "No. I mean strategy," she countered. "They think I'm fragile. Let's prove them wrong." Silence stretched between them. Finally, Kale exhaled. "You're learning how to talk like a general." "I learned from one," she replied. That earned her a rare smile, faint but real. By dusk, Kale gathered his commanders in the great hall. Torches flickered against stone, shadows crawling like restless spirits. Maps littered the long table, lines of ink crisscrossing mountains and rivers. "The Nightshade march from the north," he said. "The Crimson Order from the south. They'll meet in the valley within 2 nights." Ilara stood at his side, feeling the weight of every stare. Some of the captains still looked at her with open suspicion. One finally spoke. "She brings light into a house of darkness. How can we trust she won't burn us all when the battle begins?" Kale's voice dropped, steady and cold. "Because I will be beside her. If she burns, I burn. Do any of you doubt my choice?" No one answered. Ilara met their eyes one by one. "You think I'm your curse," she said. "Maybe I am. But I'll be the curse that devours your enemies before it touches you." The silence broke into murmurs, surprise, approval, fear. But it was enough. The council bowed. When the hall emptied, Kale turned to her. You keep doing that. Doing what? Turning their fear into fire. She shrugged. It's easier than turning it into trust. The next day, preparations began. The fortress became a machine of war. Vampires sharpened blades, reinforced walls, spread black banners across the mountain. Ilara helped where she could, weaving light into the wards to strengthen them, healing wounded soldiers, testing how far her power could reach without burning out. Each night, she and Kale met to plan. Each night, the bond between them grew stronger. Sometimes she could feel his thoughts like whispers at the edge of her mind, a flash of memory, a wave of emotion. He never spoke of it, but she knew he felt her too. Once, when exhaustion pulled her down mid-conversation, Kale caught her before she fell. Rest, he said softly. I can't. You'll need strength tomorrow. She looked up at him, the firelight turning his eyes to molten crimson. So will you. I have yours, he said. That's enough. Her heartbeat stuttered. She wanted to tell him what that meant, how the bond felt less like magic now and more like gravity, but the words tangled on her tongue. Instead, she said, if we survive this, I'm making you teach me how to disappear again. He smiled. If we survive this, I'll teach you anything. The war came with the dawn. The nightshade attacked first. The valley below the fortress filled with their ranks, a sea of black armor and red banners. The Crimson Order followed, human soldiers chanting under the symbol of a burning flame. Kale's forces waited at the ridge, silent as stone. The morning light broke through the clouds like blood over snow. Ilara stood at Kale's side, her hands glowing faintly, her heart steady. They outnumber us, she said. Kale nodded. They always do. Then the horns sounded. The first clash shook the mountain. Arrows screamed through the air, magic flared in bursts of red and white. Kale's warriors moved like shadows, fast and brutal, cutting through human lines. But for every fallen enemy, two more took their place. Ilara closed her eyes and reached for her power. The world became light, fierce, wild, endless. She threw her hands forward, unleashing a wave that shattered enemy sigils and burned through the front line. The ground trembled. The crimson soldiers screamed as their weapons dissolved into ash. Kale's voice reached her through the din. Ilara, enough. She drew back, chest heaving. The air smelled of smoke and iron. The valley was littered with fire. When she opened her eyes, Kale was standing in front of her, his face fierce and alive. You'll kill yourself if you keep drawing like that, he said. Then I'll die fighting, she answered. He caught her hand. Not today. The bond flared between them, steadying her, channeling the wild energy into rhythm. Together they moved as one, his sword and her light, shadow and flame. Every strike, every burst of power felt like a heartbeat shared. By the time the sun set, the valley was theirs. The enemy retreated into the forest, leaving only smoke and silence behind. Kale looked across the battlefield, blood streaking his armor. This was only their test, he said. The real war comes next. Ilara followed his gaze. In the distance, storm clouds gathered. And within them, something darker stirred. Chapter 14, The Truth of Her Bloodline. That night, the fortress mourned its fallen. Fires burned in the courtyard, and the air carried the heavy scent of ash and victory. Ilara stood apart from the others, her arms folded against the cold. She could still feel the echo of power under her skin, restless and bright. Kale joined her, silent at first. They watched the flames together. You saved us, he said quietly. She shook her head. You led them. We both did. Ilara smiled faintly. Never thought I'd end up a war hero. Kale turned to her, his eyes thoughtful. You were born to stand in fire, Ilara. You just forgot. The words hit her strangely. Forgot. He hesitated. There's something you should know. The Elder Council, before I silenced them, they mentioned a name. One I hadn't heard in centuries. What name? Seren Vale. Ilara's breath caught. My mother's name was Lysa, not Seren. Lysa was her human name, Kale said. Seren was her true one. She was Lightborn, one of the last. And she disappeared after the Great Sundering. The ground felt like it shifted under Ilara's feet. You're saying my mother was one of them, Kale finished. Half angel, half energy. The kind who could bend creation itself. They were hunted to extinction. But one escaped, hiding among humans. That was her. Ilara stared into the fire. Pieces of her life fell into place, her mother's fear of crowds, the way she avoided mirrors, the strange glimmers in her hands when she thought Ilara wasn't looking. She used to tell me, Ilara whispered, that I had light in my bones. Kale's expression softened. She wasn't speaking in metaphor. Ilara felt tears sting her eyes, but she blinked them away. And my father? No records, Kale said. But some say Seren fell in love with one of my kind. A Shadowborn, the first of our line. Ilara turned to him sharply. You mean I'm half light, half shadow, Kale said. What the world calls impossible. She stepped back, trying to breathe. So I was never meant to belong anywhere. Kale reached out, catching her wrist. Or you were meant to belong to both. The bond flared between them, golden and crimson. The light around her shimmered, mixing with the faint dark aura that surrounded him. I've felt it since the night you opened that door, Kale said. You weren't just drawn to me, you were created for the balance I carry. That sounds like destiny again, she said softly. Maybe it is, he said. Or maybe it's choice. The world is ending either way. We decide how. Ilara looked back at the fire. The truth burned brighter than the flames. All her life she had run from what she didn't understand. Now there was nowhere left to run. If my mother was lightborn, she said slowly, then she died hiding from her own power. Kale nodded. And you won't. She turned to face him. No. I won't. Later, when the fires burned low and the fortress quieted, Ilara stood on the balcony overlooking the valley. The moon hung red in the sky. Her mark pulsed faintly, echoing the heartbeat she now shared with Kale. Below, she could see the first sparks of the enemy's return, flickers of red magic moving through the forest. The Crimson Order was regrouping, gathering something vast. Kale joined her without a word. They stood side by side, silent, the wind cold around them. They'll come again, she said. Stronger this time. Yes, Kale replied. And they'll bring something we haven't seen before. Something ancient. Ilara's hand brushed his. Then we'll be ready. He looked at her, eyes steady. You know what you are now. That truth is your weapon. Don't fear it. I don't, she said. Not anymore. For a long moment they simply stood there, watching the darkness gather at the edges of the world. The war ahead would decide everything, the clans, the order, the fragile balance between light and shadow. But for the first time, Ilara felt whole. Not cursed. Not forgotten. Born of fire and night, she was both. And together, they would make the dawn bleed. Chapter 15, The Siege. The fortress was silent before the storm. For 2 days, the enemy gathered in the valley below, thousands of soldiers, both living and dead, moving under the banner of the Crimson Order. Their torches burned red as blood, their chants rolling up the mountain like thunder. The Nightshade army had joined them at last, sealing every pass. Ilara watched from the walls. The air crackled with the scent of iron and magic. Even from this height, she could feel their hatred pressing against her skin like heat from a forge. Kale stood beside her, his armor black and gleaming, his face a mask of calm. But she could feel the truth through the bond. Beneath the surface, his power simmered, wild and heavy with centuries of anger. They mean to bury us here, he said quietly. They won't, Ilara answered. He glanced at her. You sound certain. I've burned worse things than fear. That made him smile, faint but real. Then let them come. By nightfall, the first assault began. The enemy's catapults hurled fire and stone at the mountain gates. Arrows darkened the sky. Vampires leapt from the walls to meet them, moving faster than sight, claws cutting through ranks of armored men. Ilara fought beside Kale. The light under her skin had grown sharper, more focused. Every time she struck, it left a trail of molten gold across the darkness. Each wave of enemies that reached the walls dissolved in white fire. Still, they kept coming. When one of the siege towers reached the outer wall, Kale vaulted onto it, tearing through soldiers as if the air itself obeyed him. Ilara followed, light spilling from her palms. The two met at the tower's peak, their enemies scattering below. "Hold the line," Kale shouted, his voice echoing through the chaos. Ilara reached deep into the energy coursing through her. "Cover your eyes," she warned. A pulse of pure brilliance exploded outward, blinding the front ranks of the enemy army. When the light faded, silence followed, then confusion, fear, retreat. The front lines stumbled back toward the valley. Kale grinned at her through the smoke. "You keep doing that." "What?" she said, panting. "Turning battles into legends." But the victory was short-lived. A new sound rolled across the field, a low, unnatural hum. Ilara turned toward the forest and saw it, a circle of priests cloaked in crimson, their hands raised, mouths moving in perfect unison. The ground beneath them pulsed with dark symbols. Kale's face hardened. "They're summoning." "What?" He drew his sword. "Something older than either of us." The earth split open at the valley's edge. From it rose a creature made of shadow and bone, wings like torn banners, eyes burning like coals. It roared, the sound shaking the mountain itself. Ilara's heart clenched. "How do we fight that?" Kale looked at her. "Together." He caught her hand. The bond flared between them, a surge of light and darkness twining until it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. "Focus on me," he said. "Let it flow." She closed her eyes. The world vanished. There was only heat and heartbeat, shadow and flame. When she opened them again, her hands were no longer white, they burned with streaks of red and gold, like liquid fire. The creature lunged. Kale met it midair, his blade colliding with claws the size of spears. Ilara lifted her hands and released everything she had. The sky turned to light. The mountain shuddered. When the brilliance faded, the creature was gone, reduced to ash scattered on the wind. The valley lay silent, both armies stunned by what they had witnessed. Kale landed beside her, his chest rising and falling fast. "You just destroyed a nightmare," he said. Ilara smiled weakly. "I'm getting used to it." Then her knees buckled. The bond flared painfully, heat coursing through her veins. Kale caught her before she fell. "Ilara, look at me." "I can't, it's too much." He pressed his forehead to hers. "Stay with me." Through the bond, his power poured into her, cool, dark, steady. The burn eased, her vision clearing. She exhaled shakily. "You saved me again." He held her close. "No. You saved all of us." Above them, the clouds began to break. For a brief moment, the moon shone silver over the battlefield. But beyond the peace of that moment, the war was far from over. Kale looked toward the horizon. "The order won't stop after this." "Then neither will we," Ilara said. Chapter 16, The Death Mark. The next day dawned gray and heavy. Smoke drifted over the valley, and the air stank of ash. The fortress walls were cracked, the wounded filled every hall, and Kale's army moved like ghosts through the ruins of their defense. Ilara moved among them, healing where she could, her light soft and steady. Each time she used it, she felt the bond pulse, an echo of Kale's heartbeat reminding her he was still alive, still fighting somewhere within the fortress. But something in that pulse had changed. It felt weaker, strained. She found him in the war room, sitting at the table surrounded by maps and blood-stained armor. His eyes were duller than she'd ever seen them. "You're hurt," she said immediately. "It's nothing," he replied. "That's what people say before they die." He didn't answer. She stepped closer and saw the wound, a thin line across his chest, glowing faintly with crimson symbols. It pulsed with the same rhythm as her wrist. "What is that?" she whispered. "The death mark," he said quietly. "A curse forged by the order. It binds to the bond itself. Every breath I take draws it deeper." Ilara felt her stomach drop. "You mean, it's linked to me?" "Yes." She shook her head. "Then we break it." "It can't be broken." "Then we find another way." Kale looked up at her, eyes full of something between sorrow and admiration. "You don't understand. If you try to heal me, it will kill you. The magic feeds on connection." Ilara met his gaze, her voice trembling but certain. "I'd rather die fighting for you than watch you fade." He grabbed her wrist, desperate. No. I won't lose you too. Her light flared around them, wrapping them both in a halo of white and red. Then don't. We'll do it together. Before he could stop her, she pressed her glowing hand to his chest. The bond screamed through her body, agony and fire and love all at once. The crimson mark flared, trying to consume them both. Let go, he shouted. Not until it's gone, she gasped. The power built until the air itself vibrated. Light and shadow collided, merging, twisting. She saw flashes, his memories, his centuries of war, his loneliness, his hunger, and beneath it all, a heart that had never stopped searching for light. Then everything went silent. When Elara opened her eyes, Cale was on his knees, the mark gone. Her own hands glowed faintly with traces of darkness threading through the light, his shadow within her now. He reached for her, his voice raw. You should be dead. Maybe I'm too stubborn, she whispered. He caught her hand, pressing it to his heart. You took it from me. Shared it, she corrected. We're bound now, Cale. Completely. He stared at her, realization dawning in his eyes. You merged the curse into the bond. It couldn't kill what's already won. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air between them thrummed with new energy, heavier, deeper. Their bond wasn't just magic anymore, it was life itself. Cale exhaled, almost laughing. You've rewritten the laws of this world. Elara smiled weakly. It needed a better author. Outside, the fortress stirred again. Word spread that the Alpha lived, the curse broken. Hope flickered in the hearts of warriors who hadn't felt it in centuries. But hope always came with a price. As Cale and Elara stood on the battlements that evening, the horizon burned red once more. From the distance came a new sound, deep, resonant, ancient. Cale's face darkened. They've woken something. Elara frowned. What do you mean? The Crimson Order has called their god. In the valley below, the shadows moved like a tide. A massive figure began to rise from the forest floor, a thing of smoke and wings and endless eyes. The sky itself dimmed at its presence. Elara felt the bond hum violently, as if warning her of what was coming. What is it? She whispered. Cale's voice was low, filled with dread. The first shadow. The one who made us. Elara stared at the horizon, light building under her skin. Then we end him. Cale looked at her, awe and fear mingling in his expression. You would destroy the god of darkness himself? She turned to him, eyes blazing gold. You said it yourself, Cale. I was born to stand in fire. The first roar of the creature shook the mountains, scattering birds into the burning sky. The war wasn't over, it had only begun. But this time, they would fight not as king and seer, not as light and shadow, but as one. And the world, for the first time in centuries, trembled at their name. Chapter 17, The First Shadow. The world fell silent before the god arrived. Every torch in the fortress blew out at once. The air thickened until breathing felt like drowning. Clouds rolled over the mountain, black and veined with red lightning. From the valley below came a roar so deep it cracked stone. Elara gripped the battlements. Across the horizon, the first shadow rose, towering, winged, faceless, a vast body of smoke and bone threaded with stars. Each movement dragged darkness across the land. The enemy armies knelt beneath it in worship. Cale stood beside her, his armor gleaming with blood and light. That, he said, is the creature that cursed my kind. The god that made vampires in its own broken image. Elara's heart hammered. And it wants you back. It wants us all back, Cale said. You, me, every spark of defiance that ever left its shadow. Below, the fortress gates groaned as the air began to twist. The god was pulling the world inward, collapsing it toward its core. Soldiers stumbled, clutching their heads as whispers filled the air, an ancient voice echoing inside every mind. Return to the dark. Return to what you were. Elara flinched. Cale, do you hear that? He nodded grimly. It's calling to the blood. Every vampire below is hearing the same thing. And if they answer, they'll turn, he said. Become what we were before the curse was bound. She looked down at the army, thousands of warriors trembling between loyalty and madness. Then we stop it. Cale turned to her. We can't stop a god. Ilara met his gaze. Then we unmake one. They descended to the courtyard together. The air shimmered, heavy with red fog. The fortress trembled under each step the god took across the valley. The nightshade and the order were already breaking, driven half mad by the god's voice. Ilara raised her hands and sent out a wave of light, not to burn, but to quiet. The noise dulled, soldiers froze, staring at her as the glow wrapped around them. Kale's voice carried through the silence. You owe no god your soul. You are not its shadow, you are mine. The vampires looked up, hearing command in every syllable. The glow from the bond pulsed through him and into them, a heartbeat of defiance. Some fell to their knees, not in worship, but in allegiance. The first shadow roared, the sound shaking the mountain. You defy creation itself. Ilara stepped forward, her hair whipping in the wind. Creation made a mistake, she shouted. I'm here to fix it. The god's vast face, if it could be called that, turned toward her. 1,000 eyes opened in the dark. Lightborn child. Half of me, half of the sky. You cannot destroy what made you. I don't need to, she said. I just need to change you. The god reached for her. The air cracked, time itself bending. Kale moved between them, his sword blazing with black fire. You'll touch her over my ashes. The strike shook the valley. Kale was hurled backward, crashing into the ground with enough force to split the stone. The god's laughter rolled through the air like thunder. Ilara ran to him, heart pounding. Kale. Stay with me. He forced a breath, blood running down his jaw. End it. Don't wait. She looked up at the sky, where the god's wings blotted out the moon. Her hands trembled, her power flaring uncontrolled. I can't do this without you. You can, he whispered. Because I'll still be there. She understood then. The bond pulsed wildly, linking their souls tighter than ever before. Kale's shadow began to rise from his body, merging with her light, a single, impossible energy that filled the sky. The first shadow screamed as the glow engulfed it. Ilara rose into the air, her hair turning white, her eyes golden fire. Her voice echoed across the battlefield. You gave them darkness so they would kneel. I give them dawn so they can stand. She spread her hands. The light exploded outward, not soft, but fierce, a storm that erased shadow itself. Every trace of the god's power burned away, each scream fading until only silence remained. Then, everything went still. When the light faded, Ilara fell. Kale caught her before she hit the ground, his own armor scorched and torn. The god was gone, nothing left but wind and dust. Around them, the armies had fallen to their knees. The vampires looked up, not at Kale, not at her, but at the sky now filled with stars. Ilara, Kale whispered, shaking her gently. Open your eyes. She did. Barely. Her skin glowed faintly, her heartbeat slow. Did we win? Yes, he said. You did. She smiled faintly. Told you. We'd end him. Her hand brushed his face, leaving a smear of light on his cheek. Then her eyes fluttered closed. Kale felt the bond falter, flicker, dim. No, don't you dare. He pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. Take what you need. Take it all. Darkness spilled from his body into hers, his strength, his centuries, his power. The bond blazed, white and red merging again until it was impossible to see where one began or ended. When the glow faded, she breathed again. Kale, she whispered weakly. What did you do? He smiled faintly, eyes dimming. Just keeping my promise. She shook her head. No, Kale. But he was already fading, his body turning to mist, his essence pouring into her like starlight until there was nothing left of him but warmth and memory. The fortress bells rang in the distance, echoing victory. But for Ilara, the world had gone quiet. Chapter 18, The New Dawn. Morning came for the first time in centuries. Real sunlight touched the mountain, soft, golden, real. The fortress, once built for eternal night, now glowed in its warmth. The war was over. The nightshade and the order were gone, their armies scattered to dust. Ilara stood alone on the terrace, the wind tugging at her hair. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the polished stone, eyes like molten gold, faint veins of shadow curling beneath her skin. She was both. She was everything the world had feared and needed. From the courtyard below came quiet footsteps. The vampires who had survived knelt before her, not as servants, but as witnesses. "Our king," one asked softly. Ilara looked out over the valley. "He's here," she said. "Always." They bowed their heads. She turned away from them, her hand brushing the air where Kale's mark still pulsed faintly on her wrist. The bond had not broken, it had transformed. His presence lingered within her like a steady flame. At dusk, she went down to the war room. The table still bore the scars of countless battles. She spread new maps across it, maps of rebuilding, not conquest. The vampires would learn to live beneath the sun again. The humans who once hunted them would see a different dawn. It wouldn't be easy, but it was possible. She whispered, "Your war is over, Kale. Mine is just beginning." A familiar warmth stirred at the edge of her mind, a faint echo, like laughter in the distance. "Not over yet." She smiled through tears. "I should have known you'd argue." The air shimmered, and for a heartbeat, she thought she saw him, the outline of his form beside the fire, his hand resting on her shoulder. Then it faded, but the warmth stayed. Weeks passed. The mountain bloomed again. Trees returned to the slopes, rivers thawed, sunlight reached corners that had never seen it. The fortress became a haven not for monsters, but for those between worlds. Ilara ruled not as queen, but as guardian. She opened the gates to all who had been cast out, half-bloods, wanderers, the broken and the bright. They called her by many names: Light Weaver, the Last Seer, the Shadow's Flame. She accepted them all. Sometimes, when night fell, she climbed to the highest tower and spoke into the wind. "Do you still watch?" And sometimes the wind answered, soft, teasing, always. One night, as the stars stretched across the sky, she felt a familiar pulse through the bond. It had been silent for months, but now it thudded once, steady and sure. Her breath caught. "Kale?" No answer. Only warmth, deep and constant. But that was enough. Years later, stories spread of a queen who glowed when she walked, whose shadow moved with a life of its own. Some said she carried the heart of a god inside her. Others whispered she had loved a monster so fiercely that heaven itself changed to make room for them both. They were all right. In the oldest hall of the fortress, where the throne once stood empty, sunlight now poured through a cracked ceiling. On that spot stood no crown, no blade, only a carved stone, etched with two marks entwined, one of light, one of shadow. Below it, words in both languages of their blood. Born of night and dawn, they remade the world. Ilara touched the carving one last time before walking out into the sunlight. The air smelled of rain, and far beyond the mountains, a new world waited. The war was over. The god was gone. And Kale's voice, soft as ever, whispered in her ear. "Told you we'd survive this." She smiled, eyes bright with dawn. "You were right." The light spread across the peaks, golden and endless. And for the first time in the history of either kind, the world woke without fear. The story doesn't end here. It never does. Every victory, every scar, every heartbeat of this world still echoes beyond the screen. If this tale pulled you into its fire, don't let it burn out alone. Subscribe now, and step deeper into the realm where new chapters rise every week and darkness never truly sleeps. Hit the bell so you'll feel the next storm before it breaks. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if light and shadow both called your name? This isn't just my story anymore, it's ours. Until the next dawn, traveler, stay fierce, stay curious, and never stop chasing the magic.